Welcome to the roost. Alright, I am here. I'm in a new world, mostly because I want to try something new. I am in creative mode, and that means that I can do things like pull up any item I want. So if I want a slime block, I can just pick it. Now I have one in my hand. If I want diamond tools, if I can spell diamond, I can have any diamond tool I want. So it's pretty cool. It's also a little much, but I'm gonna see if I can build something here. And I'm not in a flat world because I find it difficult to start from scratch, and flat is scratch. There's like nothing there. So I'm gonna go and fly around because that's another thing, that cool thing that I can do with creative mode is fly, which I learned that it's double jump, because if I go back on the ground, then I don't, like, I just jump normally. But if I double jump, I can float up and do whatever I want. So I'm gonna fly around for a moment and find a spot because I have an idea that I want to build, but I need a mountain. And this is a good start, but I'm gonna see if there's a better place for it first. Ooh. I'm thinking this is gonna be a good spot. I think this is the spot, despite all the horses and sheep. I want kind of this plain area, and then I want this mountain as a start. Now, I know that people use like world edit and things like that for sometimes their builds. I don't have any of those mods installed, so we're just gonna work with what I got. And what I got is an idea to build, and it's gonna sound kind of dumb as my first attempt, but I wanted to build something that would be interesting and maybe a little bit big. So I'm gonna build Barad-dûr, which, for those of you who are not nerds, is the Sauron's tower, where the Eye of Sauron looks out over all of Middle Earth in Lord of the Rings. So I like the idea of eventually building maybe Mount Doom over there, because there is a really cool cinematic shot where the eye can see Mordor from across the plains, and I like the idea of that being here. But for now, I'm gonna try and get started just by building like the outer circle, which is going to be a pretty big wall. And I'm going to use some kind of stone for it. Even though the image of Barad-dûr has a wet sand palette, I went with black stone for the base of the walls. I wasn't too worried about it being circular as long as the wall had some curve to it. There was a lot of dirt to clear out in the middle though to make sure that the building ground was level. And then I filled it in with some different stone textures to give the ground some feeling. This is my first time using Replay Mod and making a time lapse, so I'm sorry for the changing light and weather throughout the video. I'll work on that next time. I think that looks pretty good. So then the next part is going to be building up the walls. Now, there's like an outer wall, there's an inner wall, and then there's the tower. So I'm going to lay out the inner wall as well, because then there's also, if you look at the picture of Barad-dûr, there's like a crumbling mess of a mountain-ish behind it as well, which I think is going to be kind of like this flat side of the circle. I'm going to make that this. So I think I'm going to just take some cobblestone and start building that up here. I started filling in the pile of rocks with cobblestone, but I wanted to give it the feeling of rubble, like a collapsed tower or wall. So I added in some pale wood logs and even coal to give it some darker texture. I also scattered some cobble in the ground and around the outer layer to make it look like fallen rocks. There is like a little crenulated, I think it's called crenulated tower, like right here. And I'm gonna try to build these out because the walls out because there's texture to the walls. There's like an indent. So let's actually try to use the pale wood here. I know it's wood and not stone. But I think it might work pretty well. The further I got in this build, the more the build was inspired by Barad-dûr than a copy of it. This is one of my first major Minecraft builds and my first time building in creative mode, so I really wanted to try things out as opposed to getting all the details right. I put the indents on the inner and outer walls and then started filling it all in with blackstone, which along with the walkway was the longest part, nearly half of this 4-hour build. As you can see, I also had to make some adjustments to the height of the indents with the pale wood that I had already built, just to make it all level and even as I finished filling in the wall. I took a lot of creative liberties with the pathway, along with everything else in this build, but I wanted to make the slant and the different height of the tower the same, or at least similar enough to make it clear that it was happening. And I think that came across, and I made some changes later on that I think made it even better. I think I want some steeper stairs. What if... I don't know if this is gonna work or not, but that would be fun. Actually, I really like that. Let's do the same thing over here. Hold on. I guess fire tick is on. That's unfortunate. Okay, if that's not gonna work, then maybe campfires will. I guess it's time to do this now. I've been putting it off for long enough. I attempted to make the tower get smaller as it got taller with a sort of slant, but I was a little willy-nilly with this part. If I had been a little more exacting, I think I could have achieved the effect I was going for. I did keep the tower in line with the slant of the outer walls and changed the material I was using for the top part several times before landing on sandstone. The willy-nilliness of the shape really hurt me when I was doing the glass here at the top, and that's why I took more creative liberties than I meant to when I started the build in doing the top here. I did debate whether or not to actually build the eye at the top, and I'm so glad that I did. I had to change the design of the eye a little bit. I ended up putting in some frog lights instead of some red wool to give it more of like the white of the eye look. But I think that turned out really well with the red glass to be kind of that fiery effect that the Eye of Sauron has. The top of the tower is by far my favorite part of the build, both to do and to look at in terms of results. Okay. So it's not perfect, but I think I got the gist of it. I got the inner tower, I got the inner wall. There's obviously no decor right now, but I got the outer wall. I got the little like pattern for the wall. One thing I need right now. There we go. And I didn't decorate the interior, but the idea is that there would be several floors here. Eventually, if you got upstairs to this floor, nope, not this floor. To this floor, you'd be able to come out here. That should probably also be a block. Be able to come out the outside of the tower and then come back in and then go back out and then come back in, and then there would be a ladder here so that you can then come and see the eye. There is the Eye of Sauron. That's all for this video. Leave a like if you want me to attempt to build Mount Doom across the way, and I'll catch you in the next one.